Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. Good evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us tonight at this Madani talk with the title Asian Cinema, Sufism, Stories, and Humor. I am Azalia Muhransyah, and I'm going to be your moderator tonight. And we will be discussing this very interesting theme with two speakers that we already have here tonight. Hello, Pak Hasan and Pak Eki. And before we start, I would like to maybe give a little bit of a context of what we are going to talk about tonight. Tonight we're going to talk about Sufism. And as one of our speakers, Pak Hasan Abdul Muttalib, actually already said that Sufism is not about retreat, but is of embracing the world and seeing it as an index. And in this chaotic world today, Sufism is becoming even more relevant. Maybe we can talk about it even more later in our discussion. And Sufism itself is very hard to define, but for this context, we will limit into the spirituality, esoteric, and mystical aspects. Thus, anything related to the process of heart purification, enlightening souls, spiritual journey, and so forth. The teachings of Sufism in many stories, such as in poems by Hafiz and Rumi, or books like Fariduddin Attar's Conference of Birds, are also full of symbolisms and metaphors. And according to Pak Hasan as well, this theme of light, which became this festival's theme, is also very important because in Holy Quran, there is a term namely Mishkat, and the God is the light of the heavens and the earth, and the light upon the light. And the earliest Sufi story is Hikayat Nur Muhammad, where God created the light of Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam before he created everything else. And music, mirror or reflection, and femininity are also three important keywords. Music is the vehicle to find God, as Muslim scholars Al-Ghazali wrote a chapter titled Sama, which means listening, and Dervish dance spirituality with music. Mirror is also important as reflection of God, the main goal of every Sufi. So we are going to talk about this more with our two speakers, and we're going to talk about, is there any such thing like Sufi film, or is it just films with elements of Sufism? What are the characteristics of these films, and are there particular filmic conventions or themes, and how relevant it is to our modern time we live in today? And also important question is that what are the correlations between Sufism and humor? Because that's the theme and the discussion that we will do tonight, which focus on Asian cinema in relation to Sufism, stories, and humor. And before we begin, I would like to also thank all of the partners of Madani International Film Festival 2021. We have Mizan and Public Culture as initiators, and it is also we also have partners of Dewan Kesenian Jakarta and Kementerian Pendidikan dan Kebudayaan, Ristek and Teknologi. And also for this very discussion that we are having tonight, we have the supporting partners of Binus University. Okay, so before we start, I would like to remind the audience to also visit the website Madani International Film Festival at madanifilmfest.id, and also follow the social media of Madani Film Festival at Madani Film Fest. And maybe if you have any questions, you can also drop it on the chat or on the YouTube comment section, and then we can have it. We can discuss about the questions later at the Q&A session after our speakers have already spoken. Okay, so now, without further ado, I would like to start by introducing our speakers. So, Pak Hasan Abdul Muttalib starts his career in 1964 as an assistant to an artist and window displayman, right, Pak Hasan?
Yeah.
Yes, and for more than half of a century, Wow, that's like a lot of time, Pak Hassan. He's
Oh,
yeah, he's that's kind of that's older than me. So he's actually a very he's becoming a pioneer and also a practitioner, right? In many fields, including graphic design and animation, and also film direction, and also creative writing, and of course the history of Malaysian early cinema, and film critic as well, right? And I also know that you also sometimes act. Is that right, Pak Hassan?
was that? Ah, yes.
Yes, he also acts, Pak Hassan. Okay, so he's a very multi-talented person, and his early animation actually inspires others to become the beginning, right, of the industry, the animation industry of Malaysia. So we should give him a round of applause for that, right? And Pak Hassan also Pak Hassan also sometimes being invited to give lectures about films, graphic design, and also animations in Malaysia and also other countries. Sorry, I'm a little bit nervous because this is a legend that we're going to talk with today. And he also became a juror in international film festivals and also animation programs curated by many festivals. And he also does research, right, Pak? And you do research in cinema and also animation, specifically early Malaysian animation. And he has written and also presented many papers and publications. And I don't know what else can I say about you, but you have a lot of things. Like I can just spend the whole evening just talking about your achievements. But we also have Pak Eki Manjaya here, who will be our second speaker, but he is also very legendary in Indonesia, right? He's got his PhD degree recently, and so I should mention him as Dr. Eki Manjaya, yeah, not Pak Eki Manjaya. And he's also a lecturer and a researcher and also a film critic. And he is a lecturer in Venus University. Actually, my colleague here, because I'm also a lecturer in Venus. Oh, I actually forgot to introduce myself as a lecturer in Venus University and also a filmmaker. And he actually finished his PhD in film studies at the University of East Anglia at Norwich, England. Sorry, England, yeah, Pak. And his study actually, his thesis actually is titled "The Cultural Traffic of Classic Indonesian Exploitation Cinema." But tonight we're going to talk about Sufism, ya, Pak, yeah, not exploitation cinema. Or maybe there is a connection there. I don't know. We'll see. And I heard that this dissertation is actually being translated, ya, Pak, into an Indonesian book, and we look forward to actually read that both in English and in Indonesian, so it can reach many more readers. And he also has a new book, which is Mencari Film Madani, right, Pak? Sinema and Dunia Islam, and Sinema dan Dunia Islam, and it is being published by the Komite Film Dewan Kesenian Jakarta and launched at the Madani Film Festival 2019. Okay. So I have already introduced our speakers, and now it's time for them to give their talk. Maybe we should start with Pak Hassan. Pak Hassan, the stage is yours.
thank you very much. Thank you to Madani Film Festival for inviting me, and specifically my good friend, Dr. Eki, who I've been in touch for quite a number of years, and we quote, I think, each other's papers. Now, first of all, I think I would like to say that what I will be talking about Sufism is actually primary source, because I myself am a Sufi practitioner for about 40 years. And I had a master who we call, this is the Guru Murshid. Guru Murshid is not an ordinary person. When a student comes to him, he knows whether the student has reached a certain level and what he can give and what he cannot give. So my master, he can read minds, he knows the past, he knew the future, but of course he doesn't let you know. So in Islam, they say that there are three kinds of knowledge that you have to garner, which is usuluddin, fiqh, and tasawwuf, which is theology, jurisprudence, and spiritual transcendence. But there's one more, and this is according to my master, which is called Sufiyatul Muhakkikin. This is to achieve the status of Insan Kamil Mukamil, the perfected man. So if you talk about light, light means something that is bestowed upon you. You do not achieve it. So when you are ready, and every one of us will get it, we will ultimately get light. And what is light? It is actually the enlightened mind. So in Hikayat Nur Muhammad, I think it is probably the earliest treatise written on the ego. So actually it is a story of the ego. And there is a similarity to Carl Jung's theories of the ego, the id and the superego. So in this, it's called the Hikayat Nur Muhammad, which is also found in, I think, around the Bentan side in Indonesia. It is about how before God created anything, he created the light. And this is the reason why they say that Muhammad was before Adam, but in a spiritual form. So he was Nur Muhammad and he was Awal Muhammad. That means he was earlier. So God asked him, hey Nur Muhammad, who is greater, you or I? So of course Nur Muhammad said, I, because he couldn't see anything. And God said, okay, now you run, I will look for you, then I will run and you look for me. So who can get hold of either one is greater. But of course, Nur Muhammad could never get hold of God. And so he said, Allahu. And that is where the prayer, the 5 times prayer came. And the word Allahu means God is greater. And that is the zikr of Naqshbandi sect, the tariqah. So that is the highest tariqah, or they are all 41. So in Hinduism, light symbolizes Brahman, is the eye. So the third eye that people are talking about is supposed to be here. Actually, it's symbolic. It's the enlightened mind. The individual self is about purity, divine power, and so on. And in the Genesis, for the Christians, in the beginning, God created heaven and the earth was without form and void, and darkness was upon the face of the deep, and the Spirit of God moved upon the face of the water, and God said, let there be light. So now we also have Hinduism, we have Christianity, and in the light of Islam is the light of the divine presence, which is God. God is pure light, and the many things are the rays of this light. These rays, although they are light, are not identical to pure light. Insofar as they are not identical with it, they are darkness. Now, we cannot consider darkness as bad or evil or negative. It's another side, like the two sides of a coin. And darkness is the absence of light, which means from this perspective that the many things are characterized by the absence of being. And in cinema, especially in like film noir and gangster movies, you see the characters are always in the shadows, or their faces are dark one side. So we can see how all these theories, or rather things that emanated from religion, have been transferred to cinema. So we have to be careful that when we analyze films, especially for film critics, that you cannot speak about a film from the point of view of anthropology, sociology, communication, and so on. Because film is a construct, it's fiction. And sometimes the positive can become negative, and negative can become positive. And this is why film critics must understand the language of cinema, which later I can give some examples. So in Sufism, what is Sufism? It's to be human as the one who takes the straight path to achieve the status of the perfected man. So it's not about going and living inside the cave or whatever. And Omar Khayyam said it very, very well. We are the puppets and the heavenly master is the puppeteer. So you see, the dalang of the wayang kulit, all dalangs, or I would say that most dalangs are actually Sufis, but they will not let you know. So they are like the clown who entertains people, but inside they are actually crying because they want to transfer the element, the moral elements about spirituality to the ordinary man, but not everybody will get it. So self-disclosure is the thing that we go for in Sufism. It is not about going out to find the knowledge. The knowledge is within you. So this is why the word guru is from two Sanskrit words. Gu means darkness or ignorance. Ru means to make clear or to discard that ignorance or darkness. And so the light that is already within you shines forth like a mirror that is dirty. You just wipe it away and you see the mirror is behind there. So this is why the symbolism of the mirror keeps appearing in Sufi stories. And the other thing is the master and student relationship. Without a master, the student cannot achieve self-disclosure. It's practically impossible, but there are exceptions because he has reached a very high level. So again, I would say that the master is actually waiting for all of us to come to see him and to get the guide from him. So the Sufi master does not teach, he guides. And if you are like clay in the hands of the sculptor and you allow yourself to be molded, the path will be very easy. That's it for the moment.
Thank you, Pak Hasan. So you already answered a big question of what Sufism is. And maybe we can talk a little bit later because you mentioned several very interesting points, such as the irony of clowns, which is why I feel like, you know, every film students will have the this idea of, you know, filming the clowns because they can feel that kind of irony, right? And then also the student and master relationships, and maybe we can talk a little bit about that even more later with the examples, right, of films, right? Pak Eki, would you like to add to that about the examples or maybe your own definition of Sufism?
Thank you very much, Pak Hasan. It's very enlightening for me, and it's very interesting, yeah, to discuss about Sufism and how to approach the light with the big capital L, yeah, the light, the God. It's nice because one of my master degree is philosophy, and I was discussing the ethical thought of Alisari Ati about the being and becoming human, because in Arabic there are two words defining a human being. The first of all is bashar. Bashar is like physical being. Physical being is like the other animals, but there is insan. Insan is the human being who always becoming toward God. Yeah, to become to be the one with the God. Because in pantheism, you can see like in pantheism everything is God. Yeah, because we live, you know, like when all we see is God. Yeah, with the big L, light. And it's very interesting because I mean, as Azalia told us, there are about light. About the light is very interesting because in Surah An-Nur, yeah, in Quran, it is stated that Allahu nurus samawati wal ard, yeah, the God Himself is the light of heaven and earth, and then like kamishkat, it's like mishkat, yeah, kamishkat. I don't know how to translate mishkat is like, and then nish, yeah, mishkat, the lamb, and then nurun ala nurin, yeah, I mean the light upon the light, above the light, and of course we are approaching the light because that's where we are from, according to Ali Shariati, the philosophy of creation, like God created human being from the land, yeah, but Allah Himself, breathed the light of like a divine light, yeah, divine spirit to mankind, so mankind can live as a humankind. So it's about the struggle between going down to the land or going up. Yeah. So I remember the saying of Ibn Sina, the metaphor, one of the story of Ibn Sina, that when he answered why the bird always sing, yeah, always tweet, yeah, because the bird remembers the early state of its life, yeah. He wanted to the bird wanted to go back because everything comes from the God. Yeah, that's the philosophy. And talking about the Asian cinema, Sufism, humor, and stories, I remember that there are the discussion or the tradition of Sufism in relation to stories and humor has a very long story. Yeah. A very long story. We can see like Hafiz, Rumi, or then Attar, Mantikutoir, or the Converse of the Birds, and then Sa'di, Sayrazi, and so on. They use literature as to express themselves, yeah. To not only to pray but also to illustrate about God and the law of God and so on. And there are some of them using humor. I consider Abu Nuwas, or nowadays we know him as Abu Nawas, and Nasrudin Hoja as a Sufi, because it's interesting because Nasrudin Hoja or Abu Nawas always throw some jokes or unusual stories with unusual perspective, with unusual thought, yeah, logic, different kind of logic. But the stories have so deep impact or deep meaning. Sometimes it's a metaphor. Sometimes it's like if we reflect, if we think about it deeply, we can find so many hikmah, so many wisdom in that. But sometimes when we see at the first time, when we hear it at the first time, it's like a crazy person saying, or blabbering or something. And this kind of Nasruddin Hoja or Abu Nawas are manifested in so many cultures. In Indonesia, we have something like Kabayan, yeah, Kabayan as a folklore, and then later became series of films, ya, Kabayan Sabah Kota, Kabayan Anak Jin, and so on. And it's interesting to find out that they use humor to represent the abstract, but the wisdom of the light. So this is very interesting, and probably we can discuss later about the films, yeah, the films that we want to discuss. But at first, some of the approaches of the films are, for example, they use the same because if you see the books of Sufism like Mantikutoir, ya, Koridon Attar, the Converse of Bird, or other stories, some of them are just like the fragments of stories or mosaic of stories, yeah, like cerita perca, because it's like only short and short, yeah. Then and then tailored into a big topic, yeah, in a book, yeah, in a big perspective, a big worldview. But in many cases, there are only like mosaics or fragments of stories. Probably for the first time we read, or for for ordinary people, we don't know it's just a joke or it's just a story. But if we see that, something beyond that, if we uh, uh, interpret the meaning, we can see a very deep meaning about that. And I can see this kind of approaches are applied in Musim Mahmablah films, because in the 90s, Musim Mahmablah is a very legendary Iranian filmmakers, but he is now not in Iran anymore. But in 90s, when the censorship was very, very sharp, he directed 3 films, a trilogy of poetic films. 2 of them are available in Click Film. It's called The Silence and Gabeh, yeah, Silence Gabeh. And the third one I haven't watched it. It's called The Gardener. The Gardener is about Baha'i. I think it's about Baha'i religious movement. It's a documentary. And The Silence is very nice because I think it applies. It's in my opinion, it applies the the unusual, because in unusual storytelling, and they use the music and mirror, as well as the femininity, yeah. Because the Silence is about a deaf boy who works as the tuner, music tuner. Is that, and whatever there is a nice sound, he follows the sound. And so the boy, so the bigger girl who are accompanying him always put the something to close his ears, something like that. So it's like it's a metaphor and so on. And then there are a mirror, and mirror is I think is the impression, because in Rumi, one of Rumi's poem, it is said that the truth with the big T is like a mirror, who the mirror broke down into pieces, and we get the mirror, and we thought we see this truth, but actually it's only one pieces, one of out of 100 pieces. So it's only one truth with the small capital, small T, not the truth by T. So everybody brings their own truth, but not the real truth. So we are finding the truth, because and the truth is the light, something like that. And of course, music, yeah, because as Azalia told us, mentioned in Ihya Ulumuddin, Al-Ghazali has a chapter called Sama, because in old days, probably nowadays as well, but when the Ghazali lived, there were some like dervish who whirling, dancing with the music, and music is like kawali, part of the rituals, ceremony. Probably Pak Hasan knows better than me about how music can be the vehicle for spiritual journey. And in the Silence, the music is symphony number 5, yeah. The von Wehoven, da 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 da, and when the boy is tuning, is using dang 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 dang, and it's nice, because from what I am citing some of one of the articles. It's, the tuning, the Beethoven thing is a symbol, like music is universal, and we can we understand music, and music is universal, and so is the light, the God. So probably I will stop from here, so we can discuss other films. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Pak Eki. Yeah, you mentioned a lot of very interesting things as well. One of them is actually how, humor is actually interrelated, right? Related and interplayed with Sufism and also films and histories and stories, right? And you actually mentioned some of the examples of that, and you also mentioned Kabayan, right? And I just want to remind everybody here that one of the films at the Manadi Film Festival 2021 is actually Si Kabayan dan Anak Jin, right? And you can actually watch it at kineforum.eventive.com, right? Yes.
Yeah.
So don't miss it. And now I would like to invite Pak Hassan as well to maybe give us your own explanation of how do you see, in what ways Sufism stories and humors are related and interplayed. And maybe you can also give some examples from the films that that you mentioned in your papers, or maybe also played in this film festival.
Let me tell you about a theory of mine. The first shot ever taken in the world on film was of a man sneezing. That was the first shot ever taken in 1895, I think, or 94. So why? See, in the Quran it says, "Waja'alna likulli shay'in sababa." God says, and for everything I've created, there is a reason. So why did he have a sneeze as the first thing that was shot on film? There must be a reason. So when we sneeze, Muslims say Alhamdulillah, praise to God. When a Christian sees us sneezing, they will say bless you, which means God bless you. Now, when Adam was created, the first thing he did was to sneeze. And he said Alhamdulillah. But to understand why he said Alhamdulillah, we have to have a flashback. Before Adam was created, God told the angels, I'm going to create man. And the angels, who were made from light, they knew what would be happening in the future. And they say, why do you want to create something that is going to cause discord and enmity in the world? And God said, I know something that you do not know. So Adam already knew about this episode, and he said, thank you for creating man. So for me, cinema is a grace from God, so that it is like a mirror that reflects our own lives. So Andre Bazin, the film philosopher, said in the 1940s, the cinema screen is like a window where we spy upon the lives of others that reflects our own lives. And even Teguh Karya, your very famous director, told me when I visited him and I asked him, what is cinema to you? He said, I put you on the screen among the characters. If you can see yourself among those characters, I have succeeded. Basically what Andre Bazin is saying. So filmmakers, when they make a film, they have an intention. And they have two stories. One is the foreground story, one is the background story. Foreground story is the one that we are watching, but the background story is the intention, what it is actually that they want to get across. And they will use all manner of codes and subcodes to hide that, and it's only for the discerning. So in the Quran also it is said that in the heavens and the earth, there are signs for those who have understanding. So to understand all this, we need to have the knowledge of semiotics, all the principles in Gestalt psychology of perception. We need to understand about archetypes and so on. So when all these things come together, the theories appeared all over the world, and it is actually being applied by filmmakers unconsciously. The great filmmakers, it just comes from inside them. So back to what Eki was saying about Nasrudin and Abu Nawas, in Sufism, a lot of humor is used. Among all the Sufi masters that I've met, they were actually very humorous people. They are serious, but at the same time, they come with jokes and they hide spiritual truth in the joke. So in Sufism, the Sufi master he tries to sharpen your mind. So he gives a joke and he will see who among the many pupils in front of him gets the point of the joke. So like Nasrudin, he will have something moral in his, and there were 2 films made on Nasrudin. Excuse me. It's a Russian film called The Adventures of Nasrudin, and there was also a film made in England called Nasrudin, which later was changed to The Thief and the Cobbler as an animation film. I visited the studio when they were making it. So their jokes, the joke is very, very, very funny, but there are something very, very sharp, something coming from a very sharp mind. For example, he said, somebody saw Nasruddin throwing bread around outside the house. And they asked, why are you doing that? To keep tigers away. But there are no tigers here. Isn't it effective? Now, it's up to you to think what is behind this. And then he will say, I can see in the dark. But in the dark, he will carry a candle. Why are you carrying a candle? Because you can see in the dark. Oh, this is to prevent people from bumping into me. So it's funny, and you feel like there's nothing behind it, but actually there's something very, very profound within it. And Abu Nawas, one of the Abu Nawas story was told by my master. He said, the king heard about Abu Nawas. There's a very clever guy cracking all kinds of jokes. So he called him to the palace. Now, Abu Nawas, if I ask you to move my palace from here to there, can you do it? And Abu Nawas says, no problem, Your Highness. So, of course, the king was taken aback. But he said, on one condition. Get all your ministers to carry it, put it on my back, and I will transfer it to somewhere else. So even in film, we cannot talk about the spiritual elements very directly. Okay. Now there was one joke that my master told me. He said it was not actually a joke. It was something that I asked him. He said, "I said, sir, when I pray, I cannot concentrate. My mind, runs away. I cannot be push-up." And you know what he said? Very calmly, and everybody laughed. He said, if you are push-up, you don't have to pray, which means you have arrived. So now the whole purpose of doing prayer is a training for you to reach that status of being push-up. Okay, now I would agree with Asrul Sani, who said that all films that go beyond the surface of life are religious films. And I would add that it's also spiritual films, as compared to Misbah and Usman Ismail, who were too much into da'wah. So being da'wah is only for Muslims, but Asrul Sani's style of movie can be for anybody. So films that are very universal can appeal to anyone. And what do you call it? I would quote the film Bulan Tertusuk Ilalang, directed by Garin Nugroho, which I first saw about 20 years ago. But for some reason, it stuck in my mind. So at that time, I did not have the knowledge that I have now. So recently, when I saw it again, I realized that it is very, very close to Sufism, and many, many elements of Sufism are in the film. So perhaps later we can talk about in detail about that, or shall I do it now?
Do it now.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
We would like to know, Pak.
Okay, Bulan is the name of the girl who's a student of this master of traditional music, dance, and so on. Ilalang is the name of this young man who comes to learn classical music from the master. Now, in filmmaking, when we cast actors, when you choose the right person, so famous directors like Eisenstein in Russia and Yasuyuro Ozu in Japan, they will not shoot until they get the right person. Because the moment the person appears on the screen, you already can tell so many things about him. So it's casting is very, very important. So how does Garin introduce the young man? And immediately we know this guy is a modern youth, and later we will find out that he will not get it. He cannot learn the true art from the master, because you can see the master is dressed very traditionally, but the boy, the youth, comes on a big bike. He wears jeans and he wears a jacket and he wears dark glasses. Now, observe that in any film, when someone is wearing dark glasses, he's the bad guy or he's a negative character. But if a hero like Shah Rukh Khan wears dark glasses, he will come and then he will remove the glasses. So he is a gangster or a bad guy who we will love. That's his character is already defined. So when in Bulan Tertutup Ilalang, the teacher-student relationship is disrupted. And this is the modern day. So I think for me, what Garin is saying in this film is that young people today want to learn the traditional performing arts, but they cannot get it the way that the old masters have gone through. So I know my master told me, and I myself went through the same process. And how does Garin tell us visually that this boy will not get it? Okay, we see him coming on the motorbike, and there are trees. And the trees, the place was chosen, the trees are in all straight lines like bars. And the motif of bars runs through the film. It is also in front of Bulan later that we see. It's a negative index. And then it comes down an alleyway. So the walls are all faded. So this is the habitat of this boy. It's not a good habitat. And then we see him entering the door to the sangar of the old master. And what do we see in the foreground? There are two bamboo sticks like in an X, which means already saying you are not good. So this is the work of the production designer. When he reads the script, he will know how to dress the set. This cannot be a coincidence. Everything in a film, the mise-en-scène, is all defined. So he has a trauma from his childhood, and it is something to do with shadow play. And then something drops on the floor and it catches fire and the whole building burns. So I'm not sure whether the father died in the fire and he felt very responsible. I'm not very clear about that. But later we will see that when he meets the master. Now, normally when we meet a master, we are very reverential. We sit at his feet, but he does not sit at his feet. He sits on a stool and he's on a level with the master. That is not a good sign. And then behind him, there's something like a fence, and the fence also has got X's. So you see the motif of the X appears. And then later when he's at the kraton and there are people singing the traditional song, he sits on the right, very far from them. And in the foreground, we see a huge pillar. It's very dark. So he is very, very much distanced from these people. And when he comes to see Bulan, she is sewing. He comes out from the dark like some kind of a devil. So all these elements have been created and designed by the director, the production designer, and the art director for us to feel subconsciously. You may not notice it, but if it was not there, you can feel something is not right. Now, how, using binary opposition, how does the director contrast this guy with someone else? So, very important, the sweeper. The sweeper has got nothing to do with the film, but he keeps appearing again and again. And then the blind man who's tuning the bonang, he also is not connected to the story. He just does his job, and the sweeper just sweeps. This is to show that the young man is very pretentious. He wants to learn art, okay? But this man his work is nothing but to sweep. And he does it without any question. He doesn't say anything. And then he falls in a faint, maybe because he did not have enough to eat or whatever. And the youth carries him, doesn't know what to do with him, puts him into a cupboard. And he just is lying there. And then the young man remembers that trauma from his childhood days. So there's a scene where it's superimposed. We see him and his mother is asking, what happened to father? Is never answered. And then there's a light that falls on the sweeper in the cupboard. And then he walks out. It's like he's glowing. And he just walks out and he takes the broom and continues sweeping. So you see, this element of Sufism is here where, for me, I've been telling a lot of people, if your job is a sweeper, if you are a teacher, if you are a minister, if your job does not bring you to self-disclosure, you have wasted your life. So be reda. Reda means accept what you have been given. If you are poor, you have to accept that you are poor, but you should also try to uplift yourself. So these are the things that I see coming up from Garin's film. And the blind man tuning the bonang, he keeps on, he does nothing, but he's got a special ability. And even in Memories of My Body by Garin, there is a small boy who's got this unusual talent of seeing what this hand, the hand can lay an egg or not. I think it's something like that. Isn't it, Aki? He puts his finger, I think probably, and he can tell. Now, how did God give all these unusual abilities to people? Like Beethoven and Bach, from the age of 5 and 6, they were already able to play the piano. And one of them was, I think, deaf, and yet could compose music. Where does this come from? And the traditional performing masters, the dalang of the wayang kulit, they can go for hours and hours and hours reciting their stories without any script. The young people of today can't do that. And we see this youth, Ilalang, composing his song, but the master does not. And then he gets upset when the master doesn't care for his music. The master hardly reads what he has written, but he knows that this guy cannot make it. And there are 3 scenes where he either uses the music sheet that Ilalang has composed to wipe his face, or to wipe something, or put his cigarette butt onto it. Which means the master knows when somebody comes to see him, he just looks at the person, he knows this guy cannot handle things. And there's a beautiful scene of 4 or 5 men who are fashioning a bowl, a metal bowl that has come out from the furnace. And they are doing it in rhythm with like a musical beat. And this young man is watching them, but he does not get it. Does not understand that art, true art, comes from very much within you. Now, the master himself, we can see how committed he is to whatever he does. And he says, I'm writing a book on ancient court song. So he, as the servant of the king, should never feel any doubt. And he should be confident and remain faithful to the king and be ever trustworthy in serving him. But does the youth do this? He gets upset when the master does not care for his music. And then he seduces one of the students, and he does not, we do not even see him, shaking his hand or whatever, and he gets angry at the master. So these are the things that I see that is close to the student and master relationship of the Sufis.
Wow, that's very, very interesting. And for everyone who's watching right now, please know that this film, this fantastic film that Mr. Hasan just analyzed, is also available for you to view at the Madani Film Fest 2021, and you can go to kineforum.eventive.org to access the films. And I would also like to remind you, if you have any questions, please put it in the chat box and we will ask it to our speakers. So I also would like to know more about your theory of Sufism and index and the relationship between them, Pak Hasan. But I would like to invite Pak Eki first, if he would like to maybe give a little bit of an analysis of films, especially because you also mentioned a little bit about elements of Sufism, about mirror, right? About music, and would you like to elaborate, please, Pak Eki?
Yeah, but after listening to Pak Hasan, I know better. Yeah, actually there are so many, because Sufism is also about theme. I mean, soul purification, and then spiritual journey, and so on and so on. It's a very, and when a film move the audience, in certain ways, like emotionally, it's also indicates that the film can resonate, and probably one of them spiritually, and I have some experiences watching this kind of film. So I don't know where should I start. I think Hasan and I already prepared some films to discuss, and for example Lebuh Raya ke Neraka, Highway to Hell by Muhammad Khalid, and then Talent Time and Muksin by Yasin Ahmad, as well as some films. Maybe we can discuss later a bit about the films, of course, the Indonesian films, such as Hasan already mentioned about the Dimiswar films, the Kiamat Sudah Dekat, the Doomsday is closer, and the Dimiswar is dedicated filmmaker who focuses on most of his films are comedy and with full of Muslim society, representation of Muslim society, and some Muslim issues as well. I don't know where it's like that. But the thing is, Lebuh Raya is very interesting because it's kind of spiritual journey, Pak Hasan, if I'm not mistaken. Spiritual journey, like it's a group of motorbike, and then out of nowhere, most of them became ill except for one person, and then they experience, I don't know, it's spiritual things or some, hallucination or something, but it feels so real, because the devil, is it the devil or the angel of hell, or angel of death, like came in. It's nice to see how the journey, the spiritual journey, is happening during the films, and I agree with Pak Hasan. In fact, in Madani Film Festival and in my book Mencari Film Madani, and as well as if you see the website, from Aida Bejic and Mas Haider Bagir, Madani films in this film festival, or in my definition, it's not a dakwah film. It's not a dakwah film, like preaching. It's not a preaching film, but it's a films representing Muslim world, and the less dakwah, the less preaching is better, because we can see But Mas Haidar also mentioned, like, the film has so many layers and layers and layers that, and it's not, and if we watch the films, we can know the metaphor or the to enrich our interpretation and so on. So less preaching is better. So we can, because it's not a a mimbar, it's not a Muslim forum, but it's a movie, it's a story. It's like, it's the same with the the stories of written by Rumi or Attar or many or for example Kunto Wijoyo or Abdul Hadi WM, that they just wrote stories, beautiful stories, but not, they don't do it verbally, or like they don't the films or the stories don't have to include the the straightforward message, like the codes, or the rituals, and but the message is it's like, I remember Ali Syariati mentioned that Quran is so beautiful because there are so many stories and metaphors, timeless metaphors, and timeless stories, because and it can relate to human beings in many in any eras, and it's always, timeless stories always, if can timeless stories can bring many interpretation. As I think it's Hitchcock, Hitchcock said that a good film is a film when we see it at the second time, it became a totally different film, because we have so many interpretations, so many different interpretation, different meaning, because it's so rich of things, the film language. That's, I think, in some films we can find these elements, this the timeless stories, and the universal language, the filmic or audiovisual language. I think that's what I'm trying to say. But Lebuh Raya is I wish I could watch it on the big screen, because I don't know the interpretation of hell. I don't know. We can do the it's like the hell inside of us, the hell inside of the characters, and probably the hellfire inside of the audience, the mind. I can I can interpret the film like that. I mean the soul is so poor. The souls are so, in the characters, they are rich with materialistic things, but they need spiritual things to fulfill their soul, because after all, human beings is divided into two, the spiritual things going back to the light, to the L, or going down. Like I know one of the verses, Wahadainahu we show you the two ways, Palhamah fujuraha wa taqwaha, going up or going down. It's like the metaphor. It's I think Aristoteles also mentioned that, but the Sinai Dorus and so on interpreted spiritualistic way. So the struggles between the how to become good, how to and how the worldly the worldly perspective, or the worldly atmosphere we have we have here is, it's so strong, so they will, bring us down, and the struggle is not necessarily visual or or verbal, but we can see in some films, yeah, and of course the idea of how to soul purification, and then as well as how to get trapped into a situation where we can, like, moral dilemma is also important. What do you think, Pak Hasan?
Yeah.
And also in the connection between our world and the other world, yeah, beyond this world that we are, like, for example, alam gaib, yeah, the unearthly, how do you call it in English, yeah? For example, you mentioned about hantu Kak Limah, ya. It's like the connection between the world we live in and the other world. We have our neighbors. I remember Tito Imanda directed a short film called Neighbors, when the villagers are neighbors with the unseen creatures and so on. But of course, it's from pre-Islamic state, yeah, Islamic world. But as a Muslims, we should believe in this the world beyond hereafter, and the world not on the not in this dimension. So I think Lebuh Raya is how do we get through to the other side. It's like the doors, the other side, we can somehow link to the other side. I should stop here because I'm talking too much. What do you think, Pak Hasan?
Yeah. When you talk about the other world, Muhammad Khalid made another film called Hantu Kak Limah. This was made after, and he created the world of the Orang Bunian, the individual people, and he raised them on quite a high level, where the leader, the headman of the Orang Bunian, is dressed in yellow with a nice cap on his head, and he has a tongkat in his hand to a higher level and make him look very distinguished rather than looking down upon them. And women are all dressed in white, and they even have one or two of them having musical instruments. Actually, it's a parody. If you go deeper into it, it's a parody. It's making fun of certain people, but he knows how to create. And he told me that you just take something ordinary and you make it extraordinary, and that's the work of the production designer. So I think probably he was the one who was the actual production designer behind all that he has done. He has created this hell where the devil comes to advise, and he shows how hell looks like. Of course, nobody knows. But then if you say nobody knows what hell looks like, you'll never have a film, isn't it? So he created his own hell.
Yeah.
I think based on what is mentioned in the Quran also.
And it's interesting, yeah, when we see the people in Lebuh Raya. It's like Medusa, but a man with the it is somehow it's like a doctor. It's like a Spider-Man's enemy, but it's the instead of the head with the snake, yeah, but it's the it's like the dog, ya. Siapa namanya tuh the enemy of the Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, yeah.
Yeah, the dog octopus, the octopus, but it's the real snake. It's like how Muhammad Khalid interpret the.
Okay, he's talking about the false preachers.
Okay.
They are like multi-headed snakes.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah.
But you see the contrast between that character and the devil. The devil does not look scary, except in certain places.
So it's actually a good example of mixing the humor, the
Yes.
enlightenment, everything at one place, ya Pak ya.
Yeah. The inspiration for the film came from the former Chief Minister of Kelantan, Tok Guru Nik Aziz. So we were at a festival, an event, the festival of Majid Majidi's films. So Tok Guru himself saw the film called Children of Heaven. And Muhammad Khalid, this is the kind of film we should make. Please make something like this. And 10 years later, Muhammad came out with Lebuh Raya ke Neraka.
Yeah, I think like Iranian films is, they are not talking about, the films are not trying to dakwah or to preach, but somehow we know that there are elements of spirituality, like for example, like as you mentioned, Majid Majidi, for example, the Children of Heaven, and then Baran, and Song of Sparrows, and then Majid Majidi always has very poetic titles, like the Color of Paradise, a film about a blind boy, and then and yeah, that's, I think I watched some of them, some of Majid, but and it's interesting because Majid didn't didn't apply a straightforward dakwah, like you should pray or you should be good or something, but he just because one of the elements we are discussing is stories, Sufism, humor, and stories, but he just tells stories of ordinary people to become human, because you said that Sufism is about becoming human, it's just a human with with their own problems, and how to solve problem, and how to face the world, including from the eyes of children. And then I don't know, I'm asking this question many years ago, and I haven't got the answer, Pak Hasan, because in Majid Majidi films there are, and in some Iranian films there are many goldfish. For example, at the end of Children of Heaven, the two siblings are sitting on the pond, and then the goldfish are eating are approaching, and then at the Song of Sparrows there are so many, like hundreds of them, when the father carry a ton of goldfish, and then they fell down, and the goldfish are between life and death, like trying to survive. And then at the White Balloon by Jafar Panahi, the girl, it's always having a small aquarium with a goldfish. Do you think it has meaning? The goldfish, I don't know. I'm not familiar with the Iranian culture or Shi'i culture about the goldfish, but I saw some scenes in some Iranian films with goldfish, or
When something is used as a symbol, it can have many meanings. It's actually very ambiguous. So it's up to us, based on our own educational background, our experiences, and so on. I would think that goldfish do not harm anyone, and they are dependent on us to give them food, to put them in a proper place. And actually, we have trapped them rather than let them go into the river or ocean. So they become, and when the fish go, and as if they are kissing the feet of the boy in heaven, it's like God has sent them. And this boy, he only wanted the second prize, not the first prize. He was not interested in winning. The second prize was a pair of shoes. That's why the film is great, because the idea is so simple. And then having the, that effort he has put in, and so God rewards him by having the fish as if they are healing him. That's what came to my mind. And in Song of Sparrow, the kid, all they wanted was to rear the fish in the well. In Song of Sparrow.
Yeah, the well.
And they were so committed. And then when the tank broke, and all the fish were scattered, they started crying. And then only the father understood what was in the mind of the boys. Jesus Christ was supposed to have said, "Come unto me, little children, for it is such that will enter the kingdom of God." That means if our hearts, even though we are adults, are like children, we are the ones who will go to heaven, because we have no anger or hate for anybody.
And how do you interpret, because the father in Song of Sparrow, in the middle of the movie, he collected everything, yeah. He collected the door. He collected, and he is addicted collecting things, yeah. Can I, in a way, I consider that as the father is more into material things, yeah. And it's like, as if if the metaphor, we are going up or down, he's tied up with the worldly things, yeah, because, and it's useless. It's useless because just collecting, but nothing to do, yeah. It's not for sale. It's just like a hobby, and they are very poor, and they just put, and the father puts everything there, the unused things, yeah. But I forget the motivation. I think it's the metaphor. He began to collect free things, yeah, and for pleasure, and forget the main goal of his life, to to survive, to support his family, because in this film he got fired because the ostrich ran away, and he got fired, and he needs to, because he's jobless, and he needs to to support and I think that's, I don't know if the metaphor is right, but I think it's a good one. I watched it like in 2008, but I just tried to digest
what I saw in the film.
Yeah.
is a man who has forgotten the objective of living, which is to know himself and to know God. So by having an ostrich disappearing and him losing his job, but you can see that his resume is never cut. He went to the city on his motorbike, and somebody sat behind him and thinking that he was the taxi, like in Gojek, in Indonesia.
Yeah, Gojek, yes.
Now, very important is the final scene of the film, where he suddenly realizes that something about the ostrich. He looks at the drawing done by his son, and then he takes his motorbike, he goes into the wilderness, and there's this big landscape, and he just stands there. It is as if he's looking at the ostrich, but the ostrich has not seen in proximity. They are separated, but he begins to be enlightened when we see the effect on his face. And the most beautiful shot, I see this group of ostriches running as if they are the vanguard of the ostrich that was lost. And the final scene is of that ostrich as if it was doing a very strange dance. So to me, what came out was as if the ostrich is telling him, did you think all this while I am an ostrich? That means God is speaking through the ostrich. You have forgotten the objective of living. You have been doing everything for your family. Your rizki is always there, but you have forgotten that you have to know yourself. And remember, there's a scene after he's broken his leg, and there's a close-up as if stars in a blue sky. Now, in films, whenever you have stars in the sky, it means your story is about destiny. So it is his destiny to discover the path again that he was destined for. So that's what I saw in the whole film. Because he never had any problem about looking for work or whatever. And the children are the ones who actually brought him to the realization. It's very clever.
And the boy, because he went to the city with the boy, and the boy gave the father rezeki as well, because he got rejected by so many rich people, to be the gardener or whatever the host wants. But since the goddaughter, the boy meets the little girl, and then that's how the father got the first job, right? That's the gardener. So the children also took an important part, as well as another example of the animal, the use of the animal, the ostrich, and then the goldfish, and so on. It's nice to interpret the symbol and so on.
Remember the scene of the little girl with the incense at the traffic junction? Look at it, the way she smiled. And it is as if she's blessing him and giving him another reminder.
I remember.
That's actually very, very interesting, because I can see like these two film critics this is kind of like an embodiment of what you're saying in your writings, right, Pa Hassan, about how to see this world through Sufism and seeing it as an index, and kind of like a decoding like all of these symbolisms in the films and whatnot. So maybe you would like to talk a little bit more about that index and how you see this Sufism as index becoming even more relevant, and especially seeing it in the lens of right now we're talking about Asian cinema, to be specific.
In the 1970s, when I was just beginning to meet various masters, I met an old man selling satay by the roadside. I didn't know that he was a Sufi. And he told me, he said, this world is an index. Dunia ini adalah kiasan. Kawin itu kiasan. Sembahyang itu pun kiasan. But of course, the preachers will get very upset when they hear this. But you see, what did he mean? So in semiotics, according to the theory by Charles Peirce, you have icons, indexes, and symbols. Icons represent what we are talking about. Indexes, they indicate, we show something that indicates what we are talking about. For instance, in film, if you show the shadow of a man, it indicates that there is a man there. Or you hear the sound of a dog, and then you show the visual of the dog. So when I point in a certain direction, you will not look at my finger, but you will look at where I'm pointing. Therefore, the index is just an indication of something else that I'm talking about. But a symbol does not represent or look at all about what I'm talking about. And so the interpretation can be many, many things. Now let's take Habibi and Ainun. There's a scene in Germany where Habibi is walking with someone, and he says that I have to return to Indonesia and start developing a work plan. Now, how did Hanung depict the scene? And what is he saying in the scene? He is foreshadowing that it was not good for him to be with the government. And there are two scenes actually. The scene where he is walking up a slope, and it is seen in extreme long shot. The camera is very far away. Why does he do that? Why not? He has a close-up of him talking. This is to foreshadow that when he goes back and then he becomes the prime minister and so on, it's not going to be good for him because he's a very spiritual person. So in film language, extreme long shot is an indication something is not right. And then going up, not going down. Going up, you have to make an effort. Now, when he reaches the airport, there is another extreme long shot showing some 2 cars waiting for him. And then there are people dressed in coats coming to get him. And even though one of them has an umbrella over Habibi, but the very nature of the shot in extreme long shot says this is not good. And then, of course, later when we see a character eavesdropping and then stepping on a cigarette butt, all this indicates that he should not go into politics. And true enough, he only served 1 term, isn't it? I think his heart was not in it because there were too many things that, you had to follow the rules of the party, blah, 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 and so on. Now, in Rudy and Ainun 3, I hope everybody will relook at this film. There is a very beautiful scene of Ainun with her father sitting on the slope of maybe like a cliff. And it looks like a painting. You see this mountain in the distance, and there's a slanting tree in the foreground. It looks like a painting. What does this indicate? That the father really loves his daughter, and both of them are spiritual. And that scene reminds us of something that is primordial, as life was in the ancient days, where there was no bribery, there was no hatred, and we didn't hate each other. But how does Hanung show that the boy Ahmad, who is in love with Ainun, is not the right choice for her? There's a scene where they go to the seaside. Again, in an extreme long shot, we see trees with no leaves. When trees don't have leaves, it means they are dead. And then there are straight lines of these trees, for some slanting. This thing indicates that it's not a good match for the 2 of them. And later we see Ainun walking with Habibi among trees, and there is slight mist, and they're walking together. There is greenery and there are yellow leaves. It looks so nice. That means they are a perfect match. And later when we see the shadow of the 2 of them as if they are about to kiss, because it was not good to show them actually kissing, but using shadows, instead of shadows being negative, in this case it is positive. This is what I meant, that academic cannot evaluate a film from the point of view of anthropology and so on, because film is fiction, unless you know the cinematic representation, why certain things are done in a certain manner. And in Teguh Karya's November 1828, at the end, when the Dutch captain is surrounded by the villagers and they are, going to kill him, of course, he is like a wild animal that has been trapped. Why did Teguh Karya do that? Because he behaved like an animal and therefore he should die like an animal. That is the director's statement. And that's how a director talks to the audience using all these things. Now, back to Bulan Tertusuk Ilalang, to show that the old master is in tune with the universe, and being one with the universe, he does this healing ceremony to heal Ilalang and Bulan from their wrongdoing. And he sits there, even though he's wearing dark glasses, which is a sign of modernity, but what he's doing is something from ancient days. And he says, we will drive away all calamities. The invisible beast within your breast will disappear into the vast ocean. Haunt me not, for I am created from the void. And like heavenly beauty of nirvana, enclosed by iron bars. So basically what Carl Jung has been talking about, the shadow that is inside you, that comes slowly to the surface and engulfs you, and that is what has happened to Ilalang and Bulan. And the old man removes that darkness from them, And at the end, we can see that both go on their own path, but the girl, she also has gone to other countries, and we hear the song of Blue Moon when she's singing, bathing, and then even the boy also, as he's leaving his house, there is a poster of Love Story, the Hollywood movie, and so on. They are too much influenced by modern day, and so they cannot grasp what the master is trying to give them. And the last scene is Bulan picking the leaves that have fallen, sticking them with a stick, and she is just like the sweeper. Maybe she has discovered herself that she knows that ultimately she has got to go back to the basic grounding that the master was wanting to give.
Wow, that's actually very poetic. I have an added question, and this is actually my own curiosity because as a filmmaker, I actually, well, I write fiction films as well, but I also make some kind of like hybrid documentary approach in my films, right? So I wonder if what you just talked about, all of the symbolism and like how, movies, you mentioned that we should not approach it from like a lens of anthropology or like sociology or something like that, but because it's fiction. So how about documentaries, Pak?
The documentary, the famous documentary guy John Grierson, he said cinema is the creative treatment of actuality. So there is no such thing as a true documentary, because the moment you plant your camera, you have made a choice that you want to take it from here.
Right.
But on the other hand, that creative aspect is, if you take the shot from the front, from the side, from the back, they have three different meanings.
Right.
Taking from the back is negative. Watch any movie, when a character is introduced from the back first, that is the bad guy. Okay? From the side, only one eye can be seen, also is not good. But if you take from the front, this is good. So therefore, you make use of this film grammar to create your film language. Even in writing, you use allusion, contrast, ellipsis, selectivity. So basically, film is literature, but it has its own language, which is a visual language, using picture and sound. So if you can master this, it's very easy to tell a story. And you can see some great filmmakers, especially in Indonesia now, we can see there are so many good directors who are very good at the visual storytelling. And I love to watch Hanung's films. They are very accessible. They are for the mainstream audience, but yet we can see how he has used the medium, the film language, to express himself. And this is what I've been talking about all this while. But unfortunately, this is not being taught in universities and colleges. So whenever I speak about this at universities, not only in Malaysia, but also all over the world, they are amazed. Why? Because there is no book that actually tells you about all of this. So I have to write that book then.
Yeah, Pak. We look forward to read that, Pak.
So they need a reference. They don't want to listen to me.
Yes. Pak Hasan, yeah.
Go ahead, Pak.
Since you mentioned about rezeki, and then we talk about animal, and then later the documentary, we have in this film festival, we have banyak ayam banyak rezeki. Many chickens, lots of luck. Yeah. And I think it's unusual, yeah, with the humor, but it's like a surreal comedy or absurd comedy, and then documentary, and then I think in a way, I don't know, in a way, like if I mentioned earlier about Abu Nawas and President Hoja about unusual way of thinking, and then the fragments of story and so on. But I don't know if it's related to banyak ayam, but how do you read the banyak ayam because I think it's, I don't know, is it one of a kind? Because the director mentioned that the genre is ethnofiction. I thought it's mockumentary with surreal comedy approaches, but the directors have their own term, ethnofiction.
Yeah.
So yeah, what do you think?
I just love the film. It's a parody.
Yeah.
It's a parody of Muslim men, but more than that, it's a very subtle criticism of the way Islam is practiced in certain places, not only in Indonesia but also all over the world.
Mm.
The first shot is of a girl riding a bike, and her tudung, the back of the tudung is flying in the wind. She looks very strange.
Mm.
Next shot of her is on a mobile phone. The moment you show someone on a screen, you are saying something negative, like a politician talking on TV. Instead of actually shooting him, you are saying something negative about the person. That means you don't believe that person. And then at the end, you have this one of the wives criticizing the religious guys, that instead of she has got a brain and she's thinking, she's very rational, but they get very upset the moment you criticize them about Islam. So this film is a parody making fun of such people. So here is a successful businessman, and the first wife was only wearing a selendang. Now this is one of the things that I'm actually very upset about. Why are women in Malaysia and Indonesia following the Arabs wearing the tudung, when we already had the culture of wearing the selendang? Isn't it? We already tutup aurat. But everybody wants to be an Arab, including using the word solat, wudu, and then embracing. Why do you want to be the Arabs? God has given every race their own culture and their own beliefs. You have to follow that. My master even had the ceremony of cutting the hair of the newborn while the salawat is being read. But some people will say, oh, this is a Hindu belief. But what about sitting on the dais, the pengantin, during the wedding? That is from Hinduism. So many people are very confused, especially the religious people, and they want us to be like them. So women are being likened to chickens. They are being picked, they are being slaughtered and ready for sale, and they don't seem to have any say. And then there's even a comment about how the call to prayer is on the speaker, and this guy goes to turn up the sound. Now, in the hadith it is said that if you create problems for your neighbor, you are not a true Muslim. But they overlook all of this. And if you criticize them, they come after you with the parang.
Yeah.
So they all follow the religion with polygamy, having 4 wives. But other aspects of religion, we never see Arjun praying. But if you read closely the ayat in the Quran, you can have 1, you can have 2, you can have 3, you can have 4. But this you cannot do. How can you be just with all 4? This is impossible. And in Madu Tiga, Piramli's films, this is very clearly shown. And both father-in-law, they know that the Malay man, if you prevent him, but he will circumvent the whole thing and still get married to number 2, number 3, number 4. Now, how to be just? And Piramli provides the solution at the end. So he's going to commit suicide. Actually, it's a parody. Okay, and then the 3 women discuss among themselves. Okay, we'll take turns. So it's the women making the decision for them. And Piramli was very far ahead of everybody. In the 1950s, he was already talking about women emancipation, that women are the backbone of the family. So in Pendekar Bujang Lapuk, it is the women who escort the silat master because he cannot solve the problem anymore. And in Seniman Bujang Lapuk, The girl is interested in Piramli, the hero. She gives him money. So for Piramli, hey, what's the big deal? If a girl likes a man, it's okay to give him money and not the other way around. So you see, filmmakers have got a very strong responsibility to change the thinking of people. And in Maui's film, Tiada Tajuk, I do not know if you have seen it. It's on the YouTube. The title is Tiada Tajuk, no title, and directed by Maui. It is actually Sufism for dummies. If you want to understand Sufism, you watch this movie. And it's very, very funny about three rockers from the village going to the city, and then they get conned by everybody. But at the end, they discover themselves. It's a very clever way of making film. And a very funny joke in the movie. At 10 o'clock in the morning, suddenly we hear the azan, the call to prayer. And all these men sitting in the tea stall, they get very upset. And they run to the mosque and yell at this guy, you must be crazy. Why the hell are you doing all of this? He calmly comes out from the mosque and he says, oh, you get very upset when I call the prayer, call to prayer at 10. When I call the prayer, when I make the call to prayer at 1 o'clock for the Zohor prayers, I see none of your faces in the mosque. And of course, so that's like nothing.
Yeah. But the thing, Pak Hasan, in some cases, comedy or humor is, particularly with controversial or subversive or sensitive topics. Some people cannot stand it. Yeah, I mean, don't make jokes on your religion, something like that. But I know the creators, the people who throw jokes it's not about the religion, but it's about the ummah. Yeah? It's about the communities, about the person, not the religion. But in some cases, no, don't joke around your religion. So they are getting angry. What do you do? Because sometimes they cannot differentiate between the religion and the person who who does the rituals or the Muslims.
Yeah.
That's the problems.
The Prophet Muhammad has already said, speak to others to the level of their understanding. That means you must know your target audience. If you know your target audience is this level and you are a PhD, you have to bring your level down.
Yeah.
And when you're talking to guys in the university, of course you speak to their level. So Prophet Muhammad already talked about the target audience long ago.
Yeah.
Don't knock your head against the wall.
So we can label the film like this is not the film is not for you because you cannot stand the joke and something like that.
But in 1958 in Malaysia, in Kelantan, there was a film shown called Selamat Tinggal Kekasihku. It was based on the Indian movie called Devadas. So in the story, a Malay man is in love with a Chinese woman and he drinks alcohol. They almost burn down the theater. And the controversy about cartoon about Prophet Muhammad, most of the people who died in the demonstrations, I don't think they even saw the cartoon. So we have all kinds of people in the world, what to do? But remember, in Buddhism, their symbol is the lotus flower. Why the lotus flower? It comes from the mud, but it is pure white. It means be in the world, but not of the world. So we can mix with all these people, we can mix with gangsters, drug addicts, and so on, but we should not end up like them. Is it possible?
Yeah.
Wow.
And
That's something to think about.
and yeah, like in Yasmin Ahmad films, like for example in Gubra, I think it's the opening, not the opening. In early scenes, like the ustad came home from Sholat Subuh, and then playing with the dog, yeah, for example, like that. In Mu'alaf, for example, there are, paradox, because in a way, on one hand, I forget about that, but yeah, the Datu doesn't want to touch the dog, but on the other hand, he drinks alcohol. But it's like,
yeah,
it's like to show the paradox, yeah, in the society. That is in a clever way, I think, and that's what like, because you said about something, like the jokes on the the azan prayer, the azan calling. Yeah.
But Aki, do you remember the scene where the video of the 1965 Jakarta so-called coup? They were showing to an audience in Ayam.
Ayam, the 1965.
Very significant that over that scene they have some Islamic chanting.
Yeah.
That means, to me, it's another subtle criticism that was a horrible thing done by Muslims against innocent people. But why is there no outcry? And here, a woman just makes a small criticism, and you're all going after her.
Yeah, that's the.
Yeah.
Also, Arjun's father. Arjun's father also married more than one.
Yeah.
But he married the widows who were made widows after that 1965 coup. Remember?
Yeah.
There was a reason. And the Prophet Muhammad did the same thing, because there were so many widows after the wars. But Arjun, just because he became rich, he wanted to add 1, 2, 3, 4.
Actually, the criticism is that he married the second one because he was broke, and the wife was the one who provided for him. And he said, oh, maybe if I marry the second one, I can become richer. But like the first wife was like, I'm actually the one providing him with like my teaching job.
Oh, that would be flawed logic.
Anyway, for all of you watching, this film that we just talked about is actually also available. Banyak ayam, banyak rezeki. You can go to kineforum.eventive.org. And tomorrow, the discussion about this film is also going to be discussed at 7 until 9 p.m. live at this YouTube channel. Okay, so many chickens, lots of luck. That's the English title. Go and watch it. It's funny, and hopefully you can get it. So you are the right target audience for this film, right?
And the name is Arjun, yeah. It's like Arjuna from the Pandawa Lima,
Yeah.
A playboyish character.
When women are cornered, they do not know what to do. They go and see the medicine man. The
clinic, the shaman.
Yeah.
Is there any question from Sugar, probably? From the Zoom?
From the Zoom audience or maybe YouTube audience? We haven't seen any questions, maybe because they are all too in awe of this very, very lively conversation between these two prominent film critics.
I just add something about Yasmin's Mohsin and Talentine.
Yeah.
Mohsin, there are two beautiful scenes. One is flying kites in the middle of the paddy field.
Yeah.
And there was a French song over that really affected me. Because I felt that here were human beings at one with nature. They have problems, but it's all gone. And the last scene is where the fourth wall is broken, and then the crew and Yasmin herself come into the frame together with the two actors, the father and mother, actual father and mother, to show we are the family of men. They are all of various races, various ages, and so on. So why should we be quarreling with each other? Now in Talentine, before I forget, all her films begin with the word Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, in the name of God, most merciful and most compassionate. is not to show that she's a Muslim. For me, it is, if God can be merciful and compassionate, why can't we be the same? And you are expecting God to be merciful and compassionate to you. So that's a question that she's posing. So in Talent Time, there's a scene where the Malay girl and the Indian boy are asleep in a house alone. And the way they are arranged in the embryo position, as if they are in the womb. That means they are very innocent. No kaluat thing. And then to show that they are really pure and sincere, there are scenes of kids, playing around in front of them. And then there is a scene of the whirling dervishes, Jalaluddin Rumi inspired in Turkey. In Talent Time, there is the Qawwali song, Oh My Beloved, and this little girl is dancing and her skirt is moving round and round just like the whirling dervishes in Turkey. I can tell you that you will have tears in your eyes when you watch this scene. And then he has the angel of death being very compassionate, doesn't just come and take the soul of the mother who is in the hospital. He just comes and meets her a couple of times, has a nice talk, and he's in a wheelchair. The angel of death is in a wheelchair. And then finally, when all the problems are solved, he comes and offers her strawberries. And she takes one and eats, and then she dies. Which means there is this compassion being shown. So this film is foregrounding Indian issues. And it is all about love and compassion. And this is the theme that is running through almost every one of her films.
Actually, I did ask Yasmin Ahmad in an interview in 2007. My first question was, Yasmin, why did you put Bismillahirrahmanirrahim in every film, including that with the Chinese character and with the Indian character? And she answered, because I want to. She said that I made films because in 3 reasons. The first one is I want to understand God better. Second one, I want to make my parents happy, and I want to make my friends happy. It's just simple.